Armada Point sat silent on the bluff, its rides frozen like props no one claimed. 3 lime green bandanaed weasels watched over the grounds because no one else would. They believed the park mattered for its sound as much as its games, and they guarded the memorial to the lost Armada offshore. The Midway's paint had faded, but the memory of real music still felt close. They said the park mattered because real music once drifted over the carousel horses and kept the place alive. They planned in 3 clashing styles that never fully aligned. Mary Lou managed lists with a pencil tucked behind her ear. Thaddeus timed everything with a blueprint and stopwatch, and Ralph arrived with snacks and optimism. Their co-leadership meant debate without compromise, even over small things. Today they argued about socks. Mary Lou said left socks obviously wore out faster. Thaddeus said that was statistically impossible. Ralph held up a sock puppet like a referee and asked for a ruling, then shrugged when none came. They had taken responsibility, because the town still gathered at Armada Point for Memorial Days and festivals. Every spring, a remembrance for the lost ships featured fiddles, drums, and sometimes bagpipes, and elders insisted the music kept the wind from sounding like grief. If that sound was stolen, the remembrance would become a farce. The Weasels felt duty settle like a weight, and elders said the music kept the wind honest. Mary Lou said they would stop anyone who tried to steal it. On the cracked tile of the old pizzeria, a human Italian pizza chef tossed dough in a perfect arc, catching it with quiet grace. Flour drifted through a sunbeam that fell across broken glass. He moved like a memory and vanished back into the shadows of the Midway. The Weasels did not look his way. No one spoke. The moment passed like a flicker in the park's long memory. The villains arrived with navy black carapaces that looked like wet ink. Fred, Wiggly Jim, E-Money, and Alpha moved as a tight circle of cicadas who pretended to quarrel in public, but stayed friends in private. They seized the sound ordnance office by bribing the last park manager with discount vouchers and a menacing buzz. From there, they declared new rules that favored them. Ava said only kazoo covers were allowed, effective immediately. Their motivation was simple and rotten. Their burger stands sold patties that were only 22% real meat, the rest a slurry of soy, beet juice, and disclaimers. They believed a ceaseless fog of kazoo music would keep people from noticing the taste and drown complaints under honking noise. The plan targeted attention rather than quality. Fred said endless kazoos meant no one would listen to critics. E-Money said branding would handle the rest. They executed with grim efficiency. Ava, calling herself Sound Marshal, bolted kazoo towers to light poles and wired a central kazoo organ into the Ferris wheel hub. E-Money drove a radio cart that praised the new sound as innovation. Wiggly Jim standardized permits so only their kazoos could perform, and Fred threatened exile to the parking lot for anyone with real instruments. Fred said anyone daring to play a real instrument would be banished to the parking lot. Ava said compliance was non-negotiable. Consequences spread fast. Children cried when lullabies twisted into brassy peeps. Elders abandoned the memorial benches because the wind now sounded like a bag of bees instead of grief. Food lines thickened as ears went numb, and visitors shuffled to the worst beat in memory. No one could hear what mattered over the honking fog. Under the dead carousel, Mary Lou led the first confrontation and said this had to stop. Fred buzzed that artistry was overrated and permits were clear. Wiggly Jim threw a switch and a kazoo love song drowned the Weasels. Ralph suggested a tug-of-war to settle it, but the rope at the game's alley pulled toward the Cicada's side. Mary Lou said this has to stop. Fred said artistry was overrated. Ralph said the rope was suspicious and probably cheating. A message arrived from Ludwig, an off-white crocodile who guarded the high school mascot closet in a trailer beside the park. He said the giant gator costume, Ralligator, moved at night, slammed locker doors, and hummed with an eerie breath. He begged for help because the marching band needed that mascot for the remembrance. If it was haunted, no one would march. Ludwig said the mascot was moving on its own and asked for help. The cicadas tightened their grip the next afternoon by shutting down a community test concert. Thaddeus had set up a tiny stage and a clarinetist, but Ava flashed a Navy badge and declared the clarinet an unlicensed kazoo. She cut the stage power with a smirk. E-Money filmed the Weasels' annoyance and labeled them enemies of fun on his feed. Alva said the clarinet was an unlicensed kazoo. E-Money said the Weasels were enemies of fun. At sunset they rolled out the great kazoo blimp, an inflatable caterpillar that ruled sound from a dozen speakers. Weekly Jim announced it would patrol every public event, ensuring compliance and providing branded shade. A still-pea shadow swallowed the park. The Weasels felt small beneath it. Wiggly Jim said the blimp would provide compliance from the sky and shade as a bonus. Mary Lou tried a workaround by wheeling out an accordion and calling it a large foldable kazoo. Fred called a compliance review and then smothered the attempt under amplified kazoo hits. The crowd, already woozy, drifted toward the burger stand where the 22% truth hit under pickles. The air tasted like failure and grease. Mary Lou said the accordion was a foldable kazoo. Fred said her logic was cute before blasting it into silence. Quick interlude. If you're enjoying this tale of music and mischief, help the channel grow. Like, subscribe and comment the word slop to join the crew. Your support keeps the next beat rolling and the kazoos at bay. Thanks for being here. The fallout stung. The Remembrance Committee canceled the week's practice, and a rumor spread that the Weasels were jealous of the Cicada's success. Ralph tried to host his tug-of-war for morale, but the ropes scraped toward the Cicada's side as if anchored. He accused the air of cheating and tumbled into a barrel to his own embarrassment. Ralph said the air was cheating and that the rope had a mind of its own. That night the beat plot surged. Ludwig phoned again, whispering that the rallygator head had turned to stare at the mural and that a low moan seeped from its foam jaws. He tried to pack it away, but the suit lifted its tail and thunked the closet shut from the inside. Fear edged his voice. Ludwig said the mascot was staring at the Armada mural and moaning, and that the closet had closed itself. Hopelessness set in with the damp. Mary Lou stared at the memorial plaque and wondered if the park did not want music anymore. Thaddeus muttered that their sock argument proved they could not even agree on friction. Ralph flung 2 socks into the air to see which would land first. The kazoos droned and even the goals left. Mary Lou said maybe the park did not want music anymore. Thaddeus said maybe their friction problem was bigger than music. Their conflict sharpened until it hurt. Mary Lou argued it was foolish to keep chasing fixes when Ludwig needed help and the remembrance was collapsing. Thaddeus insisted leaving the sound war to fix a mascot was a waste. Ralph said teamwork was not a debate to win, but a rope to pull together, then eyed the tug-of-war lane and muttered about rigging again. Mary Lou said Ludwig needed them now. Thaddeus said the mascot could wait. Ralph said teamwork meant pulling together, not scoring points. The next afternoon, they met Ludwig by the trailer. The off-white crocodile wrung his cap and admitted he had been a high school drum major, so the humming sounded like breath exercises. Ralph asked if anyone had died in the costume, and Ludwig said absolutely not. Then Rallygator waddled out by itself and tapped the memorial mural like it wanted to conduct. Ludwig said the hum was like breath work. Ralph asked if anyone had died in the suit. Ludwig said no. Mary Lou stepped close and spoke with care, promising to listen if a spirit wanted respect for the remembrance. Thaddeus listened to the hum and identified a droning A, the note used to tune bagpipes. Ludwig blinked and said a set of bagpipes lay stored under the memorial stage from the old parade. Together they reasoned that the haunting was really a plea for real music and that the Cicada's weakness might be a blast of bagpipes. Mary Lou said they would listen. Thaddeus said the note was an A. Ludwig said he knew where the pipes were. They tested the idea at once. Ludwig hauled out the trunk, lifted the bagpipes carefully, and checked reeds and bags with quick, practiced hands. Mary Lou tightened straps and steadied the trunk. Ralph found a power inverter and joked that this was the most musical plumbing he had ever seen. When Ludwig played a few notes, a squad of cicadas on a fence panicked and dropped like pebbles. Ralph said it was the most musical plumbing he had ever seen. Ludwig joined their team on the spot. He promised to lead a march, tune the pipes, and coordinate timing, and he offered to investigate the suspicious tug-of-war rigging, because he knew rigging. Rallygators hummed steady like it was satisfied. The Weasels thanked him, and Mary Lou admitted she had been wrong to delay helping him. Ludwig said he would be their bandmaster. Mary Lou said she was wrong to wait. They assembled their team that evening beneath the great Kazoo blimp. Mary Lou rallied the Remembrance Committee with clear promises. Thaddeus mapped routes and timers. Ralph gathered cables, anchors, and the tug-of-war gear. Ludwig trained volunteers to pump the bagpipes without wheezing, and outlined a march straight through the park with sound the cicadas could not face. Mary Lou said the committee could count on them. Ludwig said the march would be a wall of sound. Before the march, Ludwig inspected the tug-of-war lane and pointed to a metal roller hidden under the cicada's side. The tilt explained the self-pulling rope. Ralph howled with triumph, then laughed at the audacity of cheating at tug-of-war. They reversed the rigging and reused the rollers and anchors to hang speaker cables so the bagpipe sound could bounce around the blimp. Ludwig said the rope had been tilted by a roller. Ralph said even tug-of-war had been rigged. The confrontation began as the sun slid down. Volunteers marched in kilts and sneakers, Rallygator bobbing along. Ludwig lifted the chanter and led a steady, mournful tune. Ava sneered and ordered the volume up, but the first lower rolled out and tore a gap in the kazoo fog. Ava said to crank the volume. Ludwig said hold steady on the low A. Fred shouted that it was illegal to be that majestic and signaled the blimp to descend and smother the players. Thaddeus had anticipated it. He and Ralph hauled on the re-rigged lines and guided the blimp a few degrees off course, sparing the pipers. Mary Lou signaled the next tune, one from old remembrances. The crowd clapped in true rhythm for the first time in days. Fred said it was illegal to be that majestic. Mary Lou said go to the next tune now. Quickly Jim launched a swarm of drones to scramble the marchers, but Ludwig had tuned the pipes to a resonance that made the drones wobble. The cicadas faltered as the notes climbed the Ferris wheel spokes and echoed through every kazoo tower. E-Money tried to spin the story on a live stream, but his knees shook and the feed showed his retreat instead. The momentum shifted. E-Money said the narrative was still theirs, then stumbled out of frame. Mary Lou recognized the turning point and spoke so only her team could hear. Keep compassion for the remembrance but show no mercy for the fraud, she said, and nodded to Ralph. Ralph anchored the tug-of-war rope to the blimp's fin, and everyone heaved as Ludwig hit a high phrase. The bagpipe blast and the pull together dragged the blimp into an awkward landing. Mary Lou said compassion for remembrance, no mercy for fraud. Ralph said now, pull together. The cicadas broke under the closing drone. Fred tried a last stand beneath the central kazoo organ, but Thaddeus snapped a mapped breaker and cut its power. Ava clutched her badge. Wiggly Jim stumbled on an unplugged cable, and E-Money tripped on a branded banner. They tumbled into a stack of foam fries, defeated by music and teamwork. Thaddeus said breaker, now, and flipped it. The crowd cheered, and then quieted as the remembrance music shifted to a solemn march. The bagpipes led a short circle around the memorial plaque to the destroyed armada. The wind sounded like grief again, but grief with company. Rallygator bowed its foam head, and even skeptics felt the blessing. No one needed words. The tune carried everything. Undoing the damage took a day and a half. Mary Lou and volunteers unbolted kazoo towers. Thaddeus audited power lines to make sure no hidden blares remained. Ralph ran community games to thank everyone, and for the first time the tug-of-war was fair. Someone handed him a referee's sash for how loudly he celebrated. Ralph said fairness never sounded so good and laughed into the sash. The running gag found its punchline when Ludwig revealed a stash of rollers and hidden anchors under the cicada stand. They had wired the whole midway to tilt in their favor, which explained the self-pulling rope. The parts were reclaimed for the park's new sound system, helping hoist speakers for real instruments. The joke about rigging turned into pride. Ludwig said the midway itself had been tilted, and now those parts would serve real music. Consequences fell like dominoes for the villains. The town council stripped the cicadas of their sound office posts. The health board tested the burgers and posted the 22% figure in neon numbers. The stand shut down pending restitution, and the quartet was sentenced to scrub greasy tiles with toothbrushes and to sit through a seminar on honest food and honest music. A clerk said the posts were revoked and restitution would be enforced. Back at their tools, the Weasels revisited the sock argument with data and kindness. Thaddeus admitted he had measured only his own socks, which were right foot heavy because he led with his right on ladders. Mary Lou admitted she wore out her left because she pivoted left when she bossed. Ralph laughed until he hiccuped, and they agreed the truth depended on how a person moved. Thaddeus said his right foot took the lead. Mary Lou said her left took the wear. Ralph said movement told the story. They apologized for being stubborn co-leaders. Mary Lou promised to ask instead of decide when tension rose. Thaddeus promised to listen instead of measure first. Ralph promised to keep feeding them when they forgot to eat. They bumped shoulders and called it a plan they could keep. Mary Lou said she would ask. Thaddeus said he would listen. Ralph said he would feed the team. Ludwig returned the bagpipes to the trunk with care and locked the mascot closet with a flourish. He said Rallygator was not haunted anymore, just eager. When it hummed, it matched any tune Mary Lou began. He volunteered to be the park's resident bandmaster. The Weasels agreed with relief. Ludwig said the mascot was eager, not haunted. Mary Lou said he was exactly the bandmaster they needed. Memorial season arrived properly. Real music poured across Armada Point, laughter replaced honking, and gulls returned for chips dropped by dancing. The storm that once destroyed the Armada felt honored instead of mocked. The park breathed like a place made for people again. No one talked about Kazoo covers anymore. Ralph hosted one more tug-of-war to christen the new era and made a show of inspecting both sides for hidden rollers. The rope stayed true, and the contest ended in a sweaty, joyful tie. He declared that fairness was the best kind of rigging, the kind built on purpose to help everyone hear each other. Even Thaddeus admitted it was a good line. Ralph said fairness was the best kind of rigging. Thaddeus said that was a good line. On the final night of the remembrance, the Ferris wheel lights glowed steady for the first time in years. Mary Lou stood with Thaddeus and Ralph at the rail, listening to fiddles, drums, and one proud set of bagpipes climb into the air. They had kept the music honest, the park awake, and the community together. No one suggested a kazoo cover of anything. Mary Lou said this was what the park had been waiting to hear. All the slop in this video was generated using AI. This message is for transparency, not celebration. Please like, subscribe and comment the word slop to support more stories built with care. Thank you for watching.